Sanibonani babukeli sinamukele nonke kwintandokazi yohlelo lenu Yilungelo Lakho. It's your right, we're coming to you live la mahamba phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure. Lona ke umangcolosi ushongo lolo ngisaba ukulibamba, ungangibiza ngoAlisha, ungangibiza ngoNhlanhla, amagama ami lawo. Call us, we are live 011-714-6918 or 714-6919. Consumer at sabc.co.za. Sikhona futhi on Facebook. Now mbukeli ukuba nemali yokuthenga imoto noma ukuthi uphiwe isikweletu semoto yibank sekuyinto enzima kakhulu kubathenga abaningi njengoba isimo somnotho sithanda ukuthi sibe nzima kancane. Abaningi ke sebebona ukuthi manje kungcono ukuthi bathenge imoto ngendlela ebizwa ukuthiwa ioption ekuthiwa irent to buy. Kodwa ke sibuza ukuthi namhlanje le ndlela ingcono or futhi isafe yini? Asingene shiqe udabeni leta namhlanje. Njengoba sengishilo mbukeli, owning a vehicle is quite a necessity for many families nowadays, but the cost of owning one or even qualifying for a car loan is no longer easy for many struggling consumers. So many are now trying to opt out for those rent-to-buy schemes. But what are the pros and cons of this option of owning a vehicle? Ukhuluma kabanzi ngalolu hlobo lokuthenga izimoto samukele isishoshovi samalungelo abathengi samkhumbula ubaba Elias Shamatla, sinayeke futhi ubaba Joseph Selolo, yena ke ubuya kwi-NCC phecelezi National Consumer Commission. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to both of you. Asiqale ngawo baba Elias, sakwamukela ohlelweni. Happy New Year baba.
Happy New Year to you too, Alicia, Melanli, Babuiba, SABC 1.
Thank you so much. Ntata Selolo, welcome to the show. Compliments to you too.
Compliments Nabuwe and Onyagomusha, Uba Buki Bong.
Thank you so much. Now, Babu Elias, maybe what is this rent to own option, especially mawuthenga imoto? Sike sizwe mhlambe ngezinye izinto ezifana nezindlu which are long-term loans, but imoto is a short-term loan. Yindaba sithole option ye rent to own.
Because but varona abantu bakithi are blacklisted. But varona have qualified for the loan the banking. So if you have been blacklisted or you are under debt review, how qualify for a koloi. Hence, to rent to own, because rent to own has affordability assessment, has issue out check the credit profile.
Okay.
As long as you have got income, you get a loan.
Ntata Selolo, is this a safe way of owning a vehicle in that regard? If we're hearing that even over-indebted consumers are now going to have easy access to this type of mode of buying a motor?
Yes and no. If gonke kuhamba kahle, then it will be a probably safe method. But if kungahambi kahle, you will discover that it was the worst decision you've ever made.
What makes you say that, Ntata Selolo?
Look, anything involve a credit phakathi kwayo, there should be an affordability assessment.
Absolutely.
So that it is known for a fact that at least you can afford leskweletu statile unless your circumstances change. But if your affordability assessment ingekenzwanga, you might just be biting more than you can chew.
Which is what we term reckless lending. Where the shows kuluma reckless lending lana just the other week in Ntata Selolo. Mara, maybe while we're still there in Ntata Selolo, how then does the Consumer Protection Act, Mbukeli, that I'm holding on to here, this book that you can see, it deals with maybe from page 108, paragraph 44, and it goes on to maybe I think about page 111. And it basically talks about how the consumer has the rights to assume the supplier is entitled to sell goods. In this case, these are leased goods in Selolo. So does the Consumer Protection Act then take effect in this type of relationship or agreement?
In this specific case, the Consumer Protection Act angeke ibe applicable because lease agreement it definiwe ku Consumer Protection Act.
Yes.
But iphinde it definiwe ku National Credit Act. Ku National Credit Act is it definwe njenge lease ya what they call immovable. Sorry, not immovable, but movable property. Now, umthetho wenze uhlukanisele izinto kabili. I-Consumer Protection Act yona izodila nge-lease ye-immovable like indlu. And then in National Credit Act yona izodila nge-lease ye-movable including izimoto. Now, once you bring in National Credit Act, we have to affordability assessment.
Yeah.
Right? So, but Consumer Protection Act yona izobuya idealing the subject matter of that lease agreement being imoto itself, which it must be of good quality and be safe.
Okay, all right.
And be free of any defects.
This is a huge problem, Babu Elias, because then uzothola abantu abaningi laba balendayo. Already we've established ukuthi if you blacklisted and you are over indebted, but ungeza uzothenga imoto rent to own. Aren't these creditors then going to find themselves ukuthi sebese inkingeni zama customer angakwazi ukukhokha imali abayilokhuzile abayikweletayo? And also there's no legal recourse seemingly because njengoba esho uBabu Selolo ukuthi ilokhuzana CPA lana is not applicable.
Well, it sounds like no law is applicable here. Number one, rent to own is not included in the National Credit Act.
Yes.
Prior to National Credit Act, there were rental agreements, there were installment sale agreements, there were lease agreements. And then there was a discussion amongst credit providers in the industry forum meeting in 2007. And then rentals were abolished, the ones that were offered by the banks, because they were creating confusion.
Yes.
So all the banks were requested to stop rental agreements immediately. Lease agreement has got the same characteristics as the installment sale. So that one is fine. So now, with the creditors, I'm not going to call them credit providers here. I'm going to call them creditors in this instance. So they found that there's a huge chunk of people that are blacklisted who do not qualify or who cannot access credit.
Yes.
So now they said amongst themselves, let's create a product which is not included in the CPA, which is not included in the NCA, but this product is like a mule. It's not a donkey, it's not a horse. It's in between. So now what happens is that you are renting the vehicle, it's not in your name, it's in the dealer's name.
Yes.
And then at the end of the contract or agreement of 36 months, 48 months, whatever case might be, then you buy the vehicle. Only then you buy the vehicle. All along, you have been renting the vehicle. That's why you don't have a spare key for the vehicle. That's why you don't have papers.
Yes. It's like so a title deed for a house, basically. Upon the completion of the installment, uzotoli title deed.
Yes. So now, this one, unlike if you have bought your vehicle on installment sale, at least you can renew your disc. With this one, you don't renew your disc. The dealer renews your disc.
Okay.
It's his insurance, not your insurance. It's his tracker, not your tracker.
Babu,
so basically,
Elias, Babu Elias, maybe just hold on there, because I think you're explaining this this option very nicely. Ngifuna uchazele ama viewers ethu mesibuya mbukeli, if wena ufuna ukwazi ukuthi how can you rent to own a vehicle, sishayela ucingo 0117146918 7146919 consumer@sabc.co.za. Umajali uyabuya emva kwaleli khefu ngayindawo. Mbukeli sikhuluma ngokuthi in these tough economic times ungenza njani ke wena mawukuthi uyadinga ukuthi nibe nemoto kuleyo mndeni. There is an option now ekuthiwa ukurenta to buy, okusho ukuthi leso sikweletu ke sihlala nebank or naleyo dealership zonke izinto amalokhuzana ama disc njengoba eseshilo babu Elias zishintshwa iyona i-dealership up until wena uqeda isikweletu 0117146918 7146919. My guest today ubabu Joseph Selolo, National Consumer Commission, alongside Babu Elias Shamatla, who is a consumer rights activist. Babu Elias, maybe just for context, Baba, when we're talking about this rent to buy option in relation to cars, isebenza kanjani? And ube mfuphu Baba, because I want to get into the nitty-gritties of the regulation. No, Babu Selolo.
Okay, rent to own contracts or agreements serve two purposes. One is for those people who buy the high-end cars, whereby, let's say, for example, you are working at the SABC, you have got side businesses on the side, and you haven't declared to SABC that you have got side businesses. And then you go and buy whatever vehicle, Range Rover, autobiography, whatever it is, which is beyond your salary. So it's safer to buy that vehicle in the name of your company, but it must be rented. It must be rent owned. So nobody can trace that vehicle belongs to you. That's part of it. And then that goes with tax as well, because you're going to claim tax on that vehicle.
Okay.
Then on the other part is for the consumers who are blacklisted. For example, anyone who's watching this show who has got a child who has graduated with LLB degree. That child, when he or she goes to serve articles at any law firm, nowadays, 2021, 2022, law firms require the children who just graduated to have their own cars. And they only earn a meager 5,000 rand a month. Now you are a parent. If your child doesn't have a car, the child cannot serve articles, the child cannot practice as a lawyer. So what do you do if you are a child, if you are a mother, you are a father, who has got a child that has to get an opportunity to serve articles? Then you go to the bank declines your application. Then you go to the rent-to-own dealer who says, no, as long as you give me X amount, normally it's the exorbitant amount. For example, if you take a VW Polo Vivo, you pay, let's say, for example, 50,000 rand down payment installment, and then you're going to pay 9,000 rand a month. There's no affordability assessment conducted. There's no credit bureau checks, nothing. Okay. You get the car there and there.
So then, Elias, what if then you default along the way of ukokela le moto yako and you can't make ilokuzana payments as agreed to that lease agreement of which now both of you, you're in a tight spot. The creditor or the lender cannot now go to ilokuzana NCC ayosho ukuthi wena awusakhona ukuthi umkhokhele, and now where you're just going to you can't do anything about it. Basically, there's nothing protecting you there because you went into this agreement knowing very well ukuthi ilokuzana situation yakhe njani.
Yeah, Ilula Linda, if you are not paying, they just switch off the car remotely with a tracker. Okay. Like what happened today this morning, the case that we're going to talk about. When you start the car, it won't start.
Okay.
And they can see the car where it is. They will come and pick it up now.
Okay. All right. Dr. Selolo, let's look at this industry. I mean, is there much regulation that is currently being seen around this industry? Or, as you alluded to earlier, Uguti, the only thing that can come into effect here is the National Credit Act, of which now, I mean, it looks flimsy at this point, Uguti, protect any of the two, whether it's the seller, the renter or the rentee.
Yeah, maybe let's take it a bit slow and actually look at the legislation.
Yes.
Because manje right? But I'll try to make it as simple. The National Credit Act defines a lease. It then says, paragraph A, a lease means an agreement in terms of which temporary possession of any movable property is delivered to or at the direction of the consumer, or the right to use any such movable property is granted to or at the direction of the consumer.
Yes.
Now, let's get two things. It is temporary possession of movable property or temporary use of movable property, right? That's the first paragraph. The second paragraph, payment for the possession or the use of that property is made on an agreed or determined period or periodic basis during the life of the agreement.
Yeah.
Or it's deferred or in whole or in part.
Okay.
And then it says, interests or fees or other charges are payable to the credit provider. Now, let me pause, Lana. When you look at the National Credit Act, interest, fees, charges include the insurance earlier.
Yeah.
And Louis Patala direct to the credit provider.
Yeah.
So far, in the two legs, this rent to buy has passed. It's a good definition. Now let's look at the last one. So on the three parts, one being temporary possession, two being payments on periodic periods, three being charges, right?
Yes.
Number 4, at the end of the term of the agreement, ownership of that property either passes to the consumer absolutely or passes to the consumer upon satisfaction of specific conditions set out in the agreement.
Yes.
Now, let's check what we know. What we know is that uyahamba uyolisa imoto either le oyithuzele yona ukuthi mina ngifuna imoto kanje, they find it and then they bring it to you. We pass the first test. Secondly, you then pay monthly rental fees. We pass that. In additional to that, you then have to pay like our insurances and our trackers, which are costs of credit or charges as defined in the National Credit Act. We pass that. Number 4, at the end of the term, the car will pass to you absolutely, or there are other things that you still have to do, maybe pay an extra 100 rand. Now, Nitigini as we stand, Lama rent to buy, call it whatever name you want. It's immaterial. What is material is the substance and not the form. It is not the type of a clothes a person wears, but that determines who that person is, right? Okay. So if I come to you wearing a dress, I'm still Joseph.
Yes.
If I stand up, I'm still Joseph. If I lie down, I'm still Joseph. It doesn't change. So you can dress up a transaction in any other way you want. In law, we will see that it is a simulated transaction. You have specifically made it to look like it's something else. In fact, the contract itself can even say, this is not a lease agreement, this is not whatever agreement, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
What
All right.
matters is the substance.
Okay. Siyabonga Babu Joseph. So basically Babu Joseph lana uthi okay. And this is what I wanted to understand. It's not lendlela ye rent to own is not necessarily illegal, particularly when it comes to legislation nomthetho mbukeli, but if allow my leasing conditions okusho ukuthi isivumelwano sakho nalomuntu othenga kuyena le moto you've actually underwent and you kept and honored and met those conditions enizobe niyibhalile nina navumelana ngazo at the beginning of leso sikweleti, hayi ukuthi mase kuukuthi kumele uqede ukukhokha usezokujikela kutshela ukuthi no ngangithe mina upon ukuthi uqede ukukhokhela ama insurance nani only then will you have the car. So basically here the lesson babukela ukuthi kumele nenze sure ukuthi before usigna leyo lokhuzana leyo agreement uyazi ukuthi chaza ukuthini. 0117146918 0117146919 consumer at sabc.co.za. umajali umuhle yabuyenza kwaleli khefu. Really welcome back. Ungasishayela ucingo, ungasibhalela email, ungasithola ku Facebook. I will be reading some of your comments coming through on Facebook. Sisaxolisa bakwethu siniyazi ukuthi kumele sikhiphe i50-50 lana isingisi nesizulu, so ngizozama ukuthi ngicela ama guest ami Babu Elias anizame nawo noBabu Joseph lapho ukuthi sizame nangesizulu sibone insizwe ukuthi siphusha kanjani. Mbukeli, the topic for today sikhuluma nge-rent to own option, particularly mesikhuluma ngeimoto. Ungashayela ke ucingo mangabe wena ufuna imbuzo or ufuna ukwazi ukuthi le option isebenza kanjani. Okay, so Babu Joseph, maybe let's go back to you and just finish on the legislative side of the option here rent to own. So ukhuluma ukuthi am I right in saying that ukuthi then this option cannot be seen phambi komthetho as being illegal up until nobabili, as long as nobabili umuntu othengayo or olizayo nalo othengisayo or orentisayo adhere to leyo agreement abangene kuyona bobabili?
Yes, but engizama ukuchaza ukuthi wena njengomthengi iconsumer,
yes,
lokho akusho ukuthi wena you don't have ama rights.
Okay.
Because imithetho yokuvikela kwabathengi yase South Africa ekhona kwamanje kuyi-National Credit Act no-Consumer Protection Act. It does not allow any supplier noma any credit provider to have lonto kuthiwa self-help.
Yes.
So if bengiqashe into kuwena and you now want it back, you don't have rights of self-help. You then have ukuthi uye enkundleni, uye a court uyothola order that allows you to get your property back. Even nakuma immovable property kwezindlu.
Yeah.
That's why we have laws against illegal evictions. So it is still nayo le an illegal eviction. So akana i right of self-help ukuthi yena anga decide ukuthi sengiyeza mina ngizoyicollector lo moto.
Oh, okay. Uthe ubayicima wena Babu Joseph uBabu Elias uthi bayicima ngetracker, but we're going to get into that now. I quickly want to take my caller usisibukelo all the way in eQonce. Bukelo, welcome to the show. Singakusiza kanjani today?
Ngicela ubuza mina sisi into bayavuma na uba wena bakunike i-contract uhambe uyoyifundisa kuma lawyer wakho na?
Okay, all right, siyabonga.
Wena uzoyi-understanda yonke lento.
Okay, nan. All right, siyabonga kakhulu sisibukelo with that question.
Okay,
there it is, Bra Joseph, uyabuza usisibukelo ukuthi then would lo muntu engilisa kuyena imoto, is it can they allow me to then take whatever agreement le lease agreement ngiyise kummeli wami igqwetha ayoyijonga ukuba is it within the prescripts of law and just basic contract law ukuthi umuntu angibhekele yona as an attorney? Can they do that? Can they be afforded that right as a consumer?
Yes, lokho kuyilungelo lakho lokuthi before usayina into uyifunde uze uyi-understand. If awukwazi ukuzi-understandela yona ngokwakho, ufune usizo lomunye umuntu ongakwazi ukuthi akuchazele yona kwabanzi. That includes ukuthi uyise kummeli wakho.
Okay.
Kodwa lo muntu okumele ungene nayo kuleso sivumelwano, if uyala, it's a clear sign ukuthi you don't have business entering into that agreement.
Babu Elias uthini wena ngaloko? I mean, I understand ukuthi you've come across a complaint from UCC Eastern Cape. Maybe let's look at that. Ukuthi, what are some of the cons as associated with this rent to own a car type of option? Yiziphi mhlawumbe inkinga wena sabe reportile kuwena baba?
Okay, first of all, let me also add on to what Selolo has just said.
Yes.
In South Africa, no rent-to-own company will give you a contract to go and rent at home. It doesn't happen in South Africa.
Okay, but what if it's an individual, Brai? What if it's an individual who Alisha when's the agreement ufuna ukunikeza uFlorence imoto because either I can't pay for my car or I just want to get rid of this moto or yikwenzakalani in that context?
Okay, if ufuna ukufunda a contract, ufuna ukuyithatha uye ku Mr. Selolo ukuthi awusiza or icwatsha lakho lusiza ayisebenze lento le. In practice it doesn't work. You don't exceed those doors of the dealership with the contract. You leave it there and you don't come there with your lawyer. It's you and the dealer. That's how it works. That's why it's a rent to own. Those fancy laws do not apply there. And remember, you are between the rock and hard place. The reason why you come here is because you can't go to the bank. It's the same as going to the Mashonisa. You go to the Mashonisa because you can't go to. That's the last option. You understand? And now if you get a job that requires you to have a car and you don't qualify, what option do you have? You take this contract and say, that's what happens in practice. Forget about your rights when you get there.
But before you take us to the case study because we know a lot of people, particularly the demographic also abantu blacklisted, abantu that could not get credit from e-banking. So these people are literally people that are desperate, that will literally sign on any dotted line ukuze athole use of le moto, without even going through the proper prescripts of ukuthi lo contracted in, which means this consumer loan we fake engxakini mos Brai.
In general, Linda, that's why even a deposit down payment oyikhokhayo does not form part of the agreement. When ucabanga ukuthi mayikhokha 50,000 and le moto is 150,000, when ucabanga ukuthi balance yami is 100,000. No, your balance is still 150,000. This one is for the dealer taking a risk of giving you the car without conducting the affordability assessment.
Okay, singafika apho konje Brai without you here. Sicela usitsheleke baba case study yakho ukuthi iyiphi case abeke bakureportela yona Eastern Cape.
Ubaba udata wase Eastern Cape uye eZambesi ePitori ayothenga imoto on rent to own. Naye ha qualify. Ufuna uyisebenzisa for emsebenzini wakhe ukuthi imenzele imali. Ukhokhile 56,000 rand cash down payment.
Okay.
Right? Uchuzile imoto, but it's funa ukulungisa imoto because it's a pre-owned or a used car. Funa ukulungisa lana. And then when he came back after 2 days, 3 days, the car was sold to somebody else. Then they said to him, I think Maria back, but no, you can't get it back. Choose another car. So he chose another car. He drove it to Eastern Cape, Matatiele. Everything was fine. Month end, they came to repossess the car. The very same month. Which one, they repossessed the cars, the vehicle. What was going to Kanjan? But because you paid late. At how? A month has not passed. How can you say I paid late? But nonetheless, they towed the car away from Matatiele to Queenstown. I gave Queenstown a patala installment. I drive back. So we drive it into a ride. Namhlanje exene mathu start motor hayifuna start. So remember, everything that happens to the car you must report it to the dealer because the car belongs to the dealer. It's not like installment sale. It's not like a lease agreement whereby you own the car. You understand? So everything here belongs to the dealer, not you. You don't fiddle with the car. You call the dealer. So he called the dealer, and the dealer said, "No, actually, we switched off the car. You can't start it. You owe us 31,000 rand." He said, 31,000 rand for what? But we towed the car from you to Queenstown, so you must pay the tow truck 31,000 rand. Woody, if you can't pay that 31,000 rand, namhlanje by 5 o'clock, as we speak right now, they said we are coming to fetch that vehicle of ours.
Hi, boy.
So He contacted a regulator to report a case. They said, sorry, we don't take those types of cases. It doesn't belong to us. Then obviously the consumer will be referred from one door to the other. And then the consumer is expected to go to the lawyer with which money, because he has already paid 56,000 rand deposit. So if somebody says, go to the lawyer, which lawyer is going to do pro bono on that?
Yo, okay. You know what, Babu Joseph? Babu Joseph.
Because legally,
yes.
Legally everything is wrong there. Yes.
Okay, bro, yo, yazi lesi story angazi nokuthi ngithini. Mbukeli ko 1171469187146919. Sizoza uBaba Joseph Selolo wena from the National Consumer Commission ukuthi kuthiwanike mekunje, and this is precisely what I was warning and cautioning abalaleli about ukuthi ibukisise lento, even though it might look like a viable option ukuthi kungcono ukuthi ngoba naki ibank alikuthengisi alikunikezi ilokhuzana isikweletu sokuthi uthenga imoto, but uzogijima uthi uyalana uyithola ukuthi usuluza imali njengalo baba. Siyabuya emva kwaleli khefu, don't go anywhere. Bugale, our lines are still wide open. 0117146918, alternatively 7146919. Consumer at sabc.co.za. Umajali is all over your screen namhlanje. Sikhuluma nge-rent to own, particularly asikhulumi ngezindlu bakithi, sikhuluma ngeimoto namhlanje. Yingakho ngiphethe isishoshovu samalungelo abethu abathengi, uBaba Elias Shamatla, who's a consumer rights activist, alongside uBaba Joseph Selolo from the National Consumer Commission. Babu Joseph, this is a very worrying story esiqedukizwa ngoBaba Elias. I mean, kuthini kwena mawuzwa le story, and you guys have a role as the National Consumer Commission to protect consumers. In this instance, nimsiza kanjani lo baba owakhokha 56,000, and it looks like eventually he was swindled out of le moto le ayithengile through this option here, rent to own?
Yes. The first thing engizoyenza ukuthi is to advise abathengi to really try and familiarize themselves ukuthi bawafunde lama contract abawasayinayo, so that they understand the lento abayisayinayo. But you, as I said earlier, you have two laws, the Consumer Protection Act. There, when you get to these types of things, it then says it excludes the lease as contained in the National Credit Act. More better, in the National Credit Act, it defines exactly as what it is explained, the process of buying the car, leasing it, and eventually it becoming your car. However, this is not to say that if it so happened that the contract itself is not then the lease as defined in the National Credit Act, it is now, then it will be what we call a fixed term contract. But all the features, Zalama transactions, are an out and out lease agreement as it is defined in the National Credit Act. Now, essentially, as South Africa, are going to right to self-help. So, if I give a complaint, we will assess the matter and we will communicate with our sister regulator to try and jointly assist the consumer.
Okay, all right. So there is some sort of recourse, Mbugeli. You just need to try and knock on those doors. But Jengobeshu Babu Joseph, it's going to be a tricky one. I see it to the lines once again. East London, Kuya Paku Tandisizwe. Tandisizwe, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Alicia. I just want to check this type of arrangement. Is a customer free to use the car anyhow he wants within the legal parameters, like for instance for Uber purposes?
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Babu Elias, uyabuza lapho Thandisizwe ukuthi with you keeping ownership or holding this car in your possession during the rental and lease agreement period, are you then allowed to uyibonela ukuthi wenzani ngayo? Can you do business like Uber and so forth, Mr. Delivery?
Yeah, no, they don't mind what you do with the car, but the difference between what Mr. Selolo is saying and what is happening here is that with the lease and the installment sale agreement, what happens is that the car gets registered in your name. That's why you can renew the disc. But in this type of agreement, if it's Shamatla Car Rentals, the car remains in the name of Shamatla Car Rental. It will never pass on to you until I am satisfied. That's the difference.
Okay.
So the tickets, the traffic tickets don't come to you; they come to me.
Okay.
Yes, because whereas in the normal lease or installment sale, the tickets go to you, not to the bank.
Okay. All right.
But in this case, they come to you.
Can I quickly add?
Yes, come in, Babu Joseph.
That's immaterial. Because when you lease Indlu, you don't get ownership of the house you are leasing. That's the whole point of a lease, right? The owner retains title. When you just only have possession, use and enjoyment, right? Now, you have use and enjoyment and possession of the thing that is rented to you, right? The ownership remains with the person that is leasing the lessor. Lo muntu okuqashisele lo nto aqashisele yona. We should keep separate installment sale ne-lease. The only thing that has happened lana ukuthi at the end of the period yale lease, the ownership will come to you. Even a higher purchase layer every day, you are what we call the user. You are not the title holder.
Yes.
You just are able, you still don't own that car. The title of that car belongs to the bank. So that it doesn't determine the nature of the agreement.
Okay. Okay. All right, Babu Selolo. Yo, Mbugeli, you need to be very careful, Maragle option, which is why I like the juxtaposing views between Ubabu Elias and Ubabu Elias, because particularly we are not dealing Labantu that are leasing these cars, and Ubabu Joseph will protect Hagela. Singatu yena is obu regulator nyana, even though there is no proper regulator kulelo kozana kule industry. Let's go to the callers again. Ubabu Edi, a Newcastle. Insizwe yangakiti, welcome to the show. Sakwamukelo hlelweni.
Yebo sibingelele.
Kunjani Nsizwa?
Siphile kahle kakhulu.
Ngiyaphila baba.
Ake ngihlale nje embuzweni wami lapha sisi.
Yebo.
Ngilapha ngizocela ukubuza ke la ukuthi ke uma kwenzeka la kuwenzeka ukuthi ke imoto mhlawumbe iyashayisa leyo ithenge rent to own. Bese bethi ke bakubuza ukuthi lo okushayisile unayo yini insurance. Uzokwazi ukuthi bamithane half but wona banayo insurance kodwa ngeke bakwazi bona ukuthi bachaze zonke lezo indleko. Lo mbuzo mhlawumbe ukuthi kwenzeka kanjani noma kudinga ukuthi nami ngithathe i-insurance enye mase ngiyithengile kubona ezonezelela le insurance abanayo. Yilo mbuzo engithanda ukuthi ngikwazi. Kanti futhi ke uma usuthenga enye imoto bekunikeza enye imvumo ukuthi uthenge imoto, installment siba phezulu. Kube ngathi manje imoto mhlawumbe le moto kade uhamba ngayo elimele azange ibe na insurance wakade kushayisile bengena insurance. Badinga ukuthi ke sizokhokha manje installment kuba sokhokhela imoto ezimbili, le oyithengayo nale uthatha imoto ubade ufuze ukhokhele u3.8 uzokhokhela u7,000 nemali. Usubona manje usukhokhela imoto ezimbili esikhathi esona. Uyabuza lokho bathi ke cha no kuphela uyakhumbula ukuthi nawalimaza imoto yala current on ingakho futhi ungayithathanga insurance yakho ezinezelela kuyena yakho. Akubuza kwenzeka kanjani makunjalo.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Nsizwa lo mbuzo obaluleke kakhulu. Bra Elias, maybe let's start with you. Wazi kanjani when it comes to indaba ze insurance, because uyabuza ubabu edilana ukuthi okay, say now you've taken le moto nge rent to own, ungena kwi accident uthola ukuthi the third party uthi yena akanayi insurance. Remember kade nithe yonke into ama fines nawo yonke into nama disc aya kubani to the owner of le moto, which is the car people, the dealership, right? So what happens in this instance ngendaba insurance? And I think ngicela no Babu Joseph angene after when Babu Shamatla.
Okay, what happens is that when as the driver of the car who is driving a rent to own vehicle, awungeni ndawo.
Okay.
After the insurance, you hand over to the owner, which is the dealer. The dealer is the one that's going to claim from his insurance, who's going to deal with the third party, not you, because it's not your car.
Okay.
This is not the, remember one thing, this is not the bank's car. On the bank's car, you are the owner, the title holder is the bank. Remember, I'm coming from the bank. So I'm talking about what I know here. So on the bank's car, the consumer is the owner. That's why you can renew the disc. And then the bank becomes the title holder. That's why that title holder is a cession to the bank. Okay. That's why the bank keeps and retains the title holder. But on the rent to own, you own nothing. You have got no rights whatsoever on that vehicle.
So, Bra Elias, he's even asking there, Uguti, then would that mean Uguti yena as a driver of this rent to own vehicle, can they slide in a condition yoguti naye he needs to take additional insurance since because of my accidents, maybe like absorbing themselves of any liability in any case of accidents, because siyabazi they're unscrupulous, they could possibly be doing that.
Yeah, you can do it, but how do you show the car that's not registered in your name? Because that's what I'm saying. The bank's car is registered in your name. Okay. That's why you can insure it. Okay. But the bank is just the title holder. This one, there's nothing in your name. The number plate doesn't belong to you. Okay. Nothing belongs to you.
Ishiye lapho ke Babu Elias. Babu Eddie, uyasho Babu Elias mushayisile noma ushayisiwe wena ukhuluma izinto eziningi. Ufonela labantu laba lawo abagrentisela imoto ubatshela uthi hey naku sebengishayisile. Awukhulumi nokukhuluma indaba ze insurance because yonke into kumele kube irresponsibility yabo. 0117146918 7146919. Siyabonga kwaleli khefu, don't go anywhere. All right, it's our final segment. Mbogeli, we're about to close those lines. Ngazama mhlambe producer yami izokuthi nje slide you in lapha ya kuma lines 01171469186919. Ngisahleli noBabu Joseph Selolo we-NCC noBabu Elias Shamatla, a consumer rights activist. So Babu Joseph, I mean, with what you've heard, we've got about 6 minutes for this segment. Maybe just on the back of what we were talking about, noBabu Elias ukuthi when it comes to insurance nezinto that are pertaining to le moto le or renter to own, yonke into still liability falls with the people that have the title or own the car. So uyabuza omunye uthi if ngifa while I was driving this car, then izinto zokuthi ngenza izinto like oma RAF claims and so forth, would they then be affected by this process yokuthi everything still belongs to the dealer and not me?
No. Ake City, the transaction, it sounds like, because I've not really seen these complaints, right? So I'm not talking from a specific matter. Yeah, but it sounds like they may be problematic kwezinye indawo. Yes. But logo akushintsha certain things or certain principles ezikhona emthethweni. So for example, if you are in an accident, ngale moto, yes, as long as it's not your fault, your rights to claim a road accident fund remain unaffected. Okay. Right? So it doesn't matter what imoto we own or no own. As long as, remember, RAF is fault-based. So if you put a Lakho, because you cannot benefit from your own misdemeanors, yes, right? Yes. So it doesn't affect your rights. Okay.
Babu Joseph, just hold that point. Just hold that thought. I want to quickly rush to our lines. Our last caller, uPhutkhumla insizwe yaseDurban, ngeke ngikushiye ngaphandle. Wakithi wena, kunjani nsizwe? Ngiyaphila unjani?
Ngiyabuza. Ngicela ukubuza ukuthi imoto makwenzeka intshontshwa kwenzakalani lapho? Makwenzeka intshontshwa endaweni mhlawumbe sikhokhe for 2 years. Bese futhi athe ngiqhubeka ya rent ngiyani ngiqaleni.
Angikuzwa nsizwa awuhlehlisa ireceiver emlonyeni wakho ngathi usondele kakhulu umlomo kwi-receiver angikuzwisisi.
Ngicela ukubuza ukuthi imoto makwenzeka intshontshwa la.
Oh, intshontsha.
Bese ufuna ukubona isitoleti sikanjani. Uma ngikhokha ngenyanga ngenze njani nginyisa
Okay, all right, Babu. Okay, thank you very much for that question. Another interesting question there. I think it also still deals with insurance. Babu Joseph, maybe you can take this one quickly. If it's in your forte, Uti, what if this vehicle gets stolen under your possession? As we've been talking about the fact that the dealer or the dealership or the owners of the car that's a responsibility. And it's a tracker bon. So it's their responsibility. I'm assuming Uguti bayithole imoto and then they replace you with a new car. Right?
Yeah, again, it depends also on the terms of the agreement. Because remember, a lease is specific to a particular property. So, a subject matter of the contract.
Okay.
Now, if you don't do two things should happen. Because Ubukoka Imale include an insurance, so that should step in and at least replace the loss for le property.
Okay.
But mind Chiwe, the agreement beninayo, le property leben vumelane ayo aiseko. That means agreement iapela.
Right? Okay. All right.
It means it should merely pay. Now, insurance, its role, it's to hedge. How do I put it? It's to hedge that risk, which therefore means insurance will then step in and replace the good labor with a new one, so that the contract then proceeds to a point where EAPL and ownership should ordinarily pass to you.
Ngiyabonga Babu Joseph, that's why we're going to leave it with you. Babu Elias, ngifuna nje uvalelise insizwa angisenaso isikhathi esiningi. Where can people get more information around the practices of le rent to own option? Bangakufonela, bangakuthola kanjani? Where else can they exercise ama rights wabo to get information?
Well, they can get hold of us on our telephone number 010-109-4982. They can even go to our website, Marefi Consulting, or they can even go to my Facebook page, Elias Shamatla. But one last thing I want to say, out of all the cases that went to High Court, no one has ever won this case against the rental company.
How do you leave me like that? Elias Shamatla. That is unfortunately the end of this fun discussion, informative discussion. My guest today, Babu Joseph Selolo, National Consumer Commission, alongside Babu Elias Shamatla. You can get hold of him, a consumer rights activist, Ukona Emarefi Consulting. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of this program. You can still give us your views. Send emails. We are back next week with another live consumer affairs discussion of this week, of next week. From myself, Alishu Ntantle wakajali ngithi nisale kahle, read down lawo ma contracts. Bye bye.